Welcome back to Count Me In. I'm your host, Adam Larson, joined as always by my co-host, Mitch Rochong. Today we have another episode about the captivating topic of blockchain. And who better to listen to about this topic than Dr. Stein Smith? Mitch, you talked to Sean. How did the conversation go?
Thanks, Adam. Yes, Dr. Stein Smith is an assistant professor at Lehman College in New York, but he is also on the advisory board for the Wall Street Blockchain Alliance. He does countless talks on blockchain and recently received the NJCPA 2019 Ovation Award in Innovation. In our conversation, we talked a lot about blockchain, but we also talked about other technologies and innovation, which we'll get to in future episodes. Let's take a listen to the first part of our conversation. Blockchain is a very hot topic when it comes to emerging technologies and is being brought into accounting very frequently. However, many do not fully understand the different types and options for blockchain. Can you please explain that to us?
Sure thing. So obviously the whole topic of blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and that whole sort of blockchain space is arguably the hottest topic in accounting and finance for the last 20 years, right? But it's always important to know sort of what exactly is being talked about, whether it's being talked about internally inside a firm or externally, right? Offering advice or some services to our external clients and partners. And sort of the term blockchain is tossed around a lot, but it's really more of a umbrella term than one point of data, right? Because a blockchain can be a public blockchain, it can be a private blockchain, or it can be a consortium blockchain, or basically sort of a joint venture, right? And so a public blockchain basically is the true idea of a blockchain. It's totally open source, decentralized model of storing and then sharing information in a encrypted manner. And it's the type of blockchain that is probably what most of us are going to think of in our conversations, and is also the type of blockchain that underpins Bitcoin and Ether. So on top of being the biggest option out there right now in terms of active users, in terms of individuals and all the rest, it's also probably the most high-profile one. Now, from an enterprise point of view, though, having all of the corporate data on a blockchain, right? And because don't forget, even though the blockchain is unhackable, well, or it has been unhackable as of right now, having your information stored on a public blockchain is going to give some corporations pause, right? So, and on top of that, though, the actual way that blocks of data are added onto the blockchain, the proof of work model, is awfully tough to actually do because it takes a lot of hardware, software, and also power, right? So really from an enterprise point of view, public blockchains are moving out of favor, and it's pivoting towards more of a private model or a consortium model. So a private blockchain is basically, it's almost like a traditional ERP or a application hosted inside a firm, right? Because it has the traits of a blockchain, meaning that it's a group-based model, basically, that it's immutable in nature, and that it's a permanent record, basically. After data is added onto this blockchain, it's a permanent record, can't be altered on that block-by-block basis. And sort of the best example to highlight this is the joint venture, right, or the joint venture model built out by Walmart and IBM. So basically, in that context, Walmart is the organizing firm, and so has organized the actual blockchain, hired the programmers and all of the coders to actually build it out, and is then pushing that out to its network. And so that's almost like a hybrid model, but it's more like a traditional ERP augmented by some blockchain traits. And sort of the third big bucket is a consortium model. And the best way to sort of think of this or to highlight this is to almost think of it like a industry-focused option, right? And it can be retail, it can be healthcare, it can be food safety, it can be finance or accounting, right? And so the big four firms have actually partnered up to form a consortium model or a joint platform, basically, to help them audit information out of banks. And so this consortium model currently is being used and tested with 20 banks headquartered in Taiwan. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of how this whole field evolves, right? Because all of us got interested in blockchain probably via Bitcoin, right? And sort of that's a public blockchain model, totally open source for any company to join or to be a part of. But from an enterprise point of view, again, from a accounting and a audit point of view, that's really not as helpful as a private blockchain. And again, a private blockchain is more like a traditional ERP system augmented by some traits of a blockchain. But the area that I'm most interested in going forward is this idea of a consortium model, or basically a industry group or a focused type of blockchain for a certain industry. Again, be it accounting, healthcare, or finance is not really as important as the idea of a common platform to store and to actually transmit data in a manner that is encrypted and safe, right? Both for the institutions involved and their end users.
That's great. Thank you, Sean. Now, artificial intelligence, or AI, is another major focus in accounting when it comes to technology. But what is the difference between AI and RPA in terms of accounting purposes?
So the field of AI, right? It's been talked about in the media mainstream since the 50s, right? There are whole movies, focused on the applications of AI for good and for bad, right? But as far as a accounting focus goes, AI really is not there yet for most firms. But the idea of RPA, or robotic process automation, is actually more tangible and more, I think, sort of currently useful for firms. So sort of the best way to illustrate the difference between RPA and AI is to almost imagine a pyramid or a ladder, right? And so the first step there is basic automation of processes using current ERP systems, be it Oracle, SAP, Hyperion, Xero, QuickBooks, whatever you are using. That's sort of baseline automation. RPA, though, is that extra layer, right, where it builds on that baseline automation, that baseline sort of documentation, and then helps firms automate either entire processes or pieces of processes. Now, a interesting point to keep in mind, though, with RPA is that even though we are having a conversation on accounting and on finance, RPA, that idea and that process, it's actually being used in a whole host of industries, right? So HR, right? HR, every person who is hired is obviously a individual and is hired as such. But that underlying HR process, right, the onboarding process, benefits process, all that stuff is actually pretty consistent from person to is actually consistent from person to person and from firm to firm, right? So then automating those processes and then really sort of thinking of how RPA can be used at a much broader level, be it in the hiring of people, inventory counts, bank recs, obviously, all of those types of things really unlocks sort of the true upside of it. And also versus AI, RPA actually has software tools and firms that have been out there in the marketplace for the last 15, 20 years, be it UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism. There are a whole host of firms out there who are focused in this RPA space, have products that work, and actually have a actual track record of client service over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So AI is sort of that ultimate end goal, right, where all of us want to be. And so that's basically where the data is automated, it's processed, and then on top of that, those tools and processes that are put into place by us actually can help us analyze that information on a continuous basis, right? But just a quick point to analyze on AI is that AI, like blockchain, is often tossed around, but it's more of an overarching term than a one focused data point, right? So there's computational AI, there's all sorts of AIs out there. So for our conversation, probably computational is the most important, but there are all kinds of AI options out there. So an important point to keep in mind, on top of ensuring that your underlying processes via your documentation, via automation, via RPA tools are actually ready for AI, it's important to also be able to have a conversation as to what kind of AI is actually most important for you, the firm, and for your external clients. And sort of a last point here is that firms want to often sort of jump ahead, right, to AI, just a full-blown AI project. But it's not really possible to actually go from here to AI, right? It's important to make sure that your processes and your controls and your data flow is actually built and then controlled in a way that is actually going to help you use the AI tools, right? I mean, because AI is a fantastic tool and there are great software programs out there, but if those underlying processes and that data aren't controlled, aren't cleaned, aren't normalized, it's going to be awfully hard to actually get the benefit out of AI that you are going to want. So to sum up, probably the best way to envision RPA versus AI is to sort of think of it as part one is automation, part two is RPA, and then the ultimate end goal, part three, is that AI or that self-learning type of software. But it's important to make sure that as you're having conversations, both internally and externally, your processes and your controls are actually moving upward too.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.